What do the Rotary Club, Sweden, and healthcare professionals all have in common? They all do or did at one point have a vested interest in polio, particularly in curing it. What is polio and why does the Rotary Club wage war against it? Polio has been observed for a long time, since the late 1700s, and due to the efforts of organizations like the Rotary Club, most people in the world don't even concern themselves anymore. Polio has many other names, such as morning paralysis, as it often hits unsuspectingly in the second phase of the illness. At its worst, polio can cause paralysis of most of the body due to its effects on the central nervous system. Polio's only living reservoir is other humans. Its portal of exit and entrance is often the fecal-oral route, although there are other forms of entrances possible. You are susceptible unless otherwise immunized through artificial or adaptive measures. However, varying severities of this illness do exist. Eventually, the virus can move into the CNS, where it destroys nerve cells and leaves fatty deposits, and causes spinal cord lesions, which lead to the loss of limb function, the loss of lung use, and eventually paralysis or death. Polio was difficult to understand at first, but as doctors studied the disease, it was eventually discovered to have two phases. The first presented flu or cold-like symptoms, and the second crippled those infected. This fact wasn't confirmed until the year 1905.
Jacob von Hein, a German orthopedist and a Swedish pediatrician by the name of Karl Oskar Meidem, conducted some of the earliest studies of the disease, including a comprehensive list of clinical features of infection. Meidem in particular made very detailed descriptions of the patients he followed during outbreaks. Although Meidem was considered a leading expert on the disease, it also led to Sweden being looked at as the polio capital of the world. Among his observations were how the virus traveled in communities and spread, and how infected regions ceased to have cases at a similar rate to how they came up. One very important contribution Meidem made was including those with non-paralyzing symptoms in his classifications for those with the disease. This was an important distinction which eventually led officials to taking these cases just as seriously as the crippling cases because of their ability to spread the virus. Eventually, he developed an epidemic curve that almost mirrored a parabola, and determined that this was only possible with the non-paralytic cases with the same virus, otherwise the crippling virus would continue to spread. In 1908, Karl Landster and E. Popper formally discovered this virus and determined it could be filtered from other contents once a tissue sample was taken. This discovery proved that the non-paralytic cases were caused by the same virus. Just as importantly, it allowed scientists to isolate and experiment on the virus itself. In 1894, America experienced its first major polio epidemic. It was the first epidemic to be studied by public health officials, and this outbreak led researchers to discover polio did not only infect children. Although there were many incorrect theories about the polio virus developed in the later half of the 1800s and 1900s, such as it being spread by flies, it not being contagious, and it only infecting infants, eventually everyone ended up on the same page. By the 1930s, polio had done one good thing. It allowed for the foundation of modern statistical epidemiology to be formed. On March 26, 1953, American Dr. Jonas Salk announced on national radio that he had successfully tested a vaccine against polio. Since then, numerous and more effective vaccines have been produced, but Dr. Salk's vaccine was the beginning of the end for the polio virus. Canada experienced its first polio outbreak in 1910. Public health officials were slow to recognize the virus at first until a little girl died in the Hamilton Hospital. Provincial agencies weren't sure if the virus was contagious or if there was any need for prevention, so annual outbreaks occurred every summer and fall. Entire towns were quarantined with warnings, and schools, movie theaters, and other public places were shut down. Unfortunately, this did not stop the spread of the disease. Several attempts were made pharmaceutically to stop the disease in Canada, including giving the serum made from the blood of those who recovered to the infected and giving a special nasal spray to children. Neither of these were effective measures, and the nasal spray even did damage to children's ability to smell. The most serious outbreak was in 1953 with over 9,000 cases, and the last outbreak was in 1959. The widespread use of Salk's vaccine and newer oral vaccines would see Canada getting polio well under control in the 1970s, and being certified as polio-free in 1994. Today, due to vaccination, polio is only endemic in 3 countries: Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Nigeria. Much of this is due to the Rotary Club and other organizations such as the World Health Organization, who have international mandates to eradicate polio through education and vaccination programs.